Welcome to the End of Mental Illness Brain Health Revolution Challenge. I'm so excited and I'm so proud of you. I am so happy to be here and I'm so proud of you. I think this is your most important book yet, The End of Mental Illness. So I'm just very proud of you and I'm very excited to be here doing this with you tonight.
Well, thank you so much. And there's like 1,100 people watching.
Yeah, this is great.
We're really excited. And when I thought about this is a new year, but it's really a new decade. And our goal at Amen Clinics is to create a revolution in brain health. So the end of mental illness begins with a revolution in brain health. And that's what I'm just so excited about. And if we're going to end mental illness, we need brain health revolutionaries. And those of you who've been following us for a long time, you know, Tana and I do a podcast called the Brain Warriors Way podcast because you're in a war for the health of your brain. Everywhere you go, someone is trying to shove bad food down your throat that will kill you early. And so what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks is we're going to actually give you something to do every day, 5-10 minutes max, that'll create this revolution in brain health in you and in those people you care about.
And I think what I really like about it is you're not saying that this is the end of people experiencing challenges, but it's the end of the way we talk about it, the way we treat it, the stigma around it, how we think about mental health challenges as opposed to stigmatizing and labeling people, correct?
No, we're going to get to what I mean by the end of mental illness because, quite frankly, these things aren't mental. They're brain. And if you don't understand that distinction, it hurts people. So 6-week challenge. We decided as a group, so what's going to motivate people to stay with us and to do this? It's good for you, but people are motivated by other things.
Lots of stuff.
They're motivated by money.
Prizes.
So we're going to give away $5,000. That's going to be one of the grand prize. The second grand prize is a full evaluation at one of our 8 Amen clinics across the country. So that's worth over $4,000. We're going to give away a year's subscription to Brain and Body Power Max, one of our premier supplements, the one I used in our big NFL study. We're going to give away books. We have a brand new bright light therapy lamp, and we're going to give away a bunch of those. We're going to give away 25 copies of The End of Mental Illness. And what you need to do is watch these 6 weeks and do the 42 small challenges we have for you. I'll go over this week's
And they're
challenge.
not hard. They're easy.
And then you need to write us a story or video us a story or send us an audio between 2 and 5 minutes long on how this information is changing your life or the life of someone you love.
So essentially that's how they enter. So you do all the challenges, you check them off your list, and then you actually send us some sort of verification by telling us how it's helped you or what you've gotten out of it.
Yeah, because we want stories. We want brain warrior or brain health revolutionary stories because the end of mental illness begins with a revolution in brain health. So let's get to it.
Yeah.
And as I open the end of mental illness, what I say is mental health issues affect all of us. Either you've personally struggled with a mental health issue or you love someone who has. No one escapes, and the incidence of these problems is skyrocketing with the deaths from drugs, alcohol, and suicide at their highest level in recorded history. And you know that.
I do. So I almost
because-
canceled my first date with you because you were a psychiatrist. I mean, besides the fact that I didn't want to be psychoanalyzed, you know, I had been hurt by a psychiatrist. People in my family had been hurt by psychiatrists. My grandmother was horribly hurt by a psychiatrist. And I just
She's actually diagnosed with schizophrenia.
and given electric shock therapy. She had a nervous breakdown, and it was hormonal, we think.
And she had terrible PTSD.
And diabetes.
And she was part of the starvation.
The Great Famine.
The Great Famine in Lebanon.
Right, when,
in,
Greater Syria.
What,
19. Well, she was born in 1910. It was around 1915 to 1918, something like that.
So it was during World War One.
Yeah.
And we know through epigenetics that starvation, that famine, can actually affect 3 generations.
Oh man, and
of
it
people.
affected her entire life. I mean, it was traumatizing.
Right, and so her PTSD, hormonal challenges, diabetes manifested as psychosis for a time. She ends up with this label, schizophrenia, when
Which she
it's
never heard
way
voices.
more
Yeah.
complicated than that.
Yeah.
So both of us know about this, but if you're tuned in, odds are you know about it too. But what we've learned at Amen Clinics over the last 30 years is that most psychiatric illnesses are not mental health issues at all, but rather they are brain health issues that steal your mind. And this one idea changes everything. Get your brain right and your mind will follow. So let me say that again. Get your brain right and your mind will follow. Now, at Amen Clinics, we've been doing brain imaging on our patients for 30 years, despite intense opposition from my colleagues. But I'm like, how do you know unless you look? If you don't look, you don't know. We really need to stop lying about that. And the imaging just changed everything for me. And we'll talk a little bit about it as we go along. But I really want people to get this one idea. Get your brain right and your mind will follow. And so often I say, you know, this is not a psychiatric problem, it's a brain problem.
Yeah.
And when the brain is better, you're better still. Your brain can have problems just like your heart can have problems. So next week, I have a very special announcement. But
Are you just teasing people?
I'm just teasing people. But one of my young celebrities, he wouldn't take his medicine. And just know, clear, we're not opposed to medication for a brain health issue. That would be like, well, you're opposed to medication for a heart issue, or you're opposed to medication for a liver problem. It's like, no, we're not opposed to medication. We're just opposed to that's the first and only thing you do without any biological information.
Right.
But anyways, he needed medicine. And he's like, no, I don't want to because there's all this controversy about psychiatric medication. And then he came into my office one day and he'd been scanned and he said, your brain can have problems just like your heart can have problems. And do you know that most people who see cardiologists, so both you and I have seen a cardiologist, we love him, have never had a heart attack, that they're actually there to prevent them.
What a
That's
concept.
what I see for psychiatry. To end mental illness, we must develop a similar way of thinking where we know the brain's risk factors and we go attack them as soon as possible. So I have heart disease in my family, so I know I'm at risk, but I don't have heart disease. Why? Because I do all the things to prevent it. I mean, I walk them all today. I hate to be thought of as a mall walker, right? It's like
Chloe will never let you live it down.
So what are some of the risk factors? And we're going to talk about a lot of them over the next 6 weeks. So, for example, if teenagers sleep just 1 hour less than their
1
peers,
hour.
they have higher rates of depression and suicide.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If you have gut health issues, and I remember when you and I first met that you had gut issues, and it's like, well, that doesn't have anything to do with your mind.
Yeah.
That it's associated with anxiety, insomnia, and brain fog. And you told me
So
when you
wild.
were little, you had upper and lower.
Upper and lower GIs when I was 4 years old. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
And then I asked you, well, what happened when you were 4 years old?
And I thought, and then I went, oh, here we go. You're psychoanalyzing me. This is nonsense. It was started 2 weeks after my uncle was murdered. Yeah.
So let's say that so they can actually hear it. It started 2 weeks after your uncle was murdered in a drug deal gone wrong. So maybe that has nothing to do with the unhappy gut bugs.
I thought it had nothing to do with it.
If you have Lyme disease, we're going to talk about that a lot. It can actually cause people to become angry, depressed, even psychotic.
It's wild.
So this book, The End of Mental Illness, please pre-order it. It's available March 3rd, but the more you pre-order it, the more excitement it'll get on it, and we have all sorts of gifts for you if you do. But I dedicated this book, and you actually dedicated your new book that you're working on.
I just finished the rough draft today.
Yeah, to these kids, Amelie, who's 10, and Alize, who's 15. Why? They have a family history that's horrific for mental health issues, multiple suicides, schizophrenia, drug abuse, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, addictions, criminal behavior. But as we often talk about, genes only load the gun. It's what happens to you that pulls the trigger. And unfortunately for them, they were raised in chaos with parents who struggled with addiction, domestic violence, and depression. In addition, they had multiple moves, multiple schools. Life was unpredictable, to say the least. And then about 4 years ago, they were taken from their mother by Child Protective Services and placed into foster care, where yet more traumas occurred. And so knowing this, it's very clear that these kids are at extremely high risk for mental health issues.
It's amazing how good these kids are.
The End of Mental Illness is our blueprint to end mental illness in Alize and Amelie and in their children and grandchildren. And with the program, we're pretty excited. The girls are happy. We spent the weekend with them. They're A students.
They're honor students.
They're social. They're no longer addicted to hot Cheetos. That was an issue. Do you remember Alize would like...
Oh, no, she used to go. So she's a little hustler, that one. She used to go to school and she'd buy as many bags as she could with her allowance out of the vending machine, and then she'd sell them for double. She's a drug dealer. What are you doing?
We love her. We
amazing.
hope she stopped that.
She's amazing.
I mean, she's an honors student. It's like crazy. And what we're doing with this program is putting their bodies in a healing environment. Because when little girls are born, they're actually born with all of the eggs they will ever have, which start to develop inside a growing fetus at about 5 months old. Mm-hmm. So about 5 months old is the eggs, the genetic material for the grandbabies, if you just think about this. And so our goal is to end the cycle of mental health challenges, and that's what this course, that's what this book, The End of Mental Illness, is all about. And this week we're going to talk about a bit about assessing your brain, but I want to give you some context for it. And in The End of Mental Illness, I have this great writing device that I like called If I Was an Evil Ruler. How would I increase the incidence of mental illness? And there's the angel of death. If I was an evil ruler, how would I increase the incidence of mental illness? And after this course, you're going to see it happen all around you. And then I thought, well, if I was a good ruler, how would I decrease the incidence of mental illness? And here, our symbol is Tana, because mothers are the health leaders in the family. And even though people come to Amen Clinic, 60% of them are male, but 70% of the people who call are mothers. Mm-hmm. They're people concerned about themselves, their children, and their spouse. Yes, I know. I've seen your brain.
A lot. Yes.
And so we're going to talk about strategy. So, for example, if I was an evil ruler, I'd create addictive social media apps that make everyone else's life look amazing. Yeah. And by contrast, yours sucks. Mm-hmm. And you actually on the podcast, you gave a great example.
Yeah, so I mean, I know this information and I think I'm pretty immune to it just because I know it, and I rarely scroll through social media because I think it's ridiculous and it's a waste of my time. But because I was Christmas shopping, I hate the mall more than life itself. Like I just hate going to the mall, especially.
I know we have like the opposite thing going on. I like going shopping. I like browsing. I like walking in the mall.
No, online shopping was the best thing that ever came along. So I can avoid the mall completely during the holidays. And so I was online shopping, and all of a sudden I clicked on something on Instagram, and I found myself going down this rabbit hole and being drawn to, looking at scrolling, doing the thing I never do. And I came across someone who I know, she's my age, she's another health leader. And I'm like, within 5 minutes, I felt terrible about myself. I'm like, why does she look so good? Why does she look like that? She's my age. How come she looks like that and I look like that? And then I started spinning. And I caught myself. Thank God I caught myself. And I'm like, imagine. I mean, I'm my age and I have the skill. And we do this for a living. So kids who don't have that opportunity, these teenagers don't have a shot. They're just struggling so much with this information. I mean, this ability to be able to control their emotions and how they feel about themselves and their self-esteem when they're on social media all day.
Yeah, no, I'm actually working on a new project called Your Brain is Always Listening, about the dragons from the past that breathe fire on your emotional centers. And the inferior or flawed dragon. Mm-hmm.
And women see flaws.
Right.
You look in the mirror and you see how cute you are. I look in the mirror and you're like, how do you keep your hands off of me? I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I have a new wrinkle today. Like, you know what I mean? So
how do you keep your hands off me?
It's really challenging, actually. Yeah.
If I was a good ruler, moving on, I'd create a nationwide brain health campaign. And I would have it in schools, in churches, in businesses, everywhere people gather. We're actually doing a new program with the Newport Beach Police Department over 6 months. We're planting brain health among our police officers. Why? Because they're basically our heroes. I mean,
and they have so much trauma.
The big NFL study, we've scanned and treated 300 NFL players, high levels of damage. 80% of them get better when they follow what we ask you to do. If you follow what I ask you to do, you're going to feel better. But I realized football players are entertainers,
right?
Where firefighters and first responders and police officers, they're heroes.
And the number,
and you need them to work. And they have
experience.
double the risk of suicide than the general population. So create a nationwide brain health campaign. You're part of that. That's why we're doing this 6-week challenge and giving away all these prizes, because we want you to stay with us. All right, step number 1 in the end of mental illness. We need to get rid of the term mental illness and call these things what they really are, which is brain health issues that steal your mind. The term mental illness insidiously stains everyone diagnosed, making them less likely to seek help. And you know this is true. No one is shamed for cancer, diabetes, or heart disease. Likewise, no one should be shamed for bipolar disorder, depression, panic disorders, PTSD, and schizophrenia. Yet, if we do not lower stigma for these brain health issues, many more people will suffer and die.
One of the things that frustrates me is because this is absolutely true, but what's worse than that, the one thing that's worse than the stigma around it is when people do go get help and the treatment fails and they get blamed for it not working. So when
Do you have an example?
yeah, me. So my grandmother, like every person watching, I guarantee
Now, let's
knows
be
someone.
clear. Tana was not one of my patients.
Oh no,
That's
this is
not
in my
how we
20s.
met.
But so many people I know have experienced this where they go to the doctor because something's not right. They get treatment, and when it doesn't work, there's something wrong with them. It's not because the treatment failed. And that makes people even less likely to seek help and more angry at the psychiatric and just the industry in general.
It's demoralizing. You
Yeah.
go and you trust someone, and they basically make diagnoses without any biological data. We have almost 2,000 people watching us online. Thank you so much for
That
joining
is so cool.
us.
Yeah.
We are grateful. Invite your friends. We're recording this, and then next Tuesday we'll be live as well. Every 14 minutes in this country, someone commits
So
suicide.
sad.
It is the second leading cause of death among young people, and it's getting worse.
There was a 9-year-old a few miles from us that committed suicide a few weeks ago. It was just terrible. A 9-year-old.
Suicide has increased 33% since 1999. This is a Center for Disease Control statistic. But cancer has declined 27%. Why? We're working on the wrong paradigm. Mental illness places emphasis on your psyche or your mind, which is vague and hard to define, when our brain imaging work has clearly shown these are brain health issues that steal your mind. Meet Jarrett. And some of you came on earlier. We actually rolled Jarrett's story, and his mom, Christine, talked about it. He was diagnosed with ADHD in preschool. He was hyperactive, restless, impulsive. He had no friends. He had learning problems. He had a terrible temper. 5 doctors, 5 stimulant medications. They all made him worse. So I'm thinking to myself, who has the learning problem? Is
Right.
it Jared or is it the doctors? The medications triggered rages and
He'd
terrible mood
punch
swings.
holes in the walls.
And they wanted to put him on antipsychotic medications. Now, you actually knew Jarrett when he was
I did,
little.
because his mother was a good friend of mine, and he was such a cute kid. But I was a little nervous to have my baby around him because he was just a little unpredictable. And it was really sad. It's horrible as a mother to say something like that. And the sad thing is that that's what ended up happening to him in school. A lot of parents didn't want to have kids around him. Jarrett didn't get invited to birthday parties. He became more socially isolated because he was tagged as that kid who, people didn't want their kids around him. So in spite of being this really good-looking kid who, could be really sweet, these mood swings were out of control.
Yeah, and so because you were friends, and she ended up bringing him to the clinic to get scanned. So here at Amen Clinics, we do a study called SPACT. SPACT looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. And the imaging study basically shows us 3 things: good activity, too little, or too much. And then our job is to balance it. If your brain is sleepy, we're going to find a way to stimulate it. If your brain is too busy, we're going to find a way to calm it down. And so these are healthy scans, full, even, symmetrical activity on the left. the active scan, red equals the area that's the most active, which in a healthy brain is in the cerebellum, in the back bottom part of the brain. Well, here's Jarrett's scan. So healthy on the left, he's got a pattern I described about 25 years ago now called the ring of fire. His brain works way too hard. Please don't stimulate this brain. Giving him a stimulant is like pouring gasoline on a fire. And what did we do? Natural supplements to calm his brain down. I use something called Neuralink that has GABA, 5-HTP, taurine to calm things down, and L-tyrosine to help balance his brain. And we also did parent training and did brain healthy habits. You can't do psychiatry if you're not also talking about brain health, right? It doesn't have a Prozac deficiency or a Ritalin deficiency. His brain is an organ, needs to be healthy, just like your heart needs to be healthy. And within a couple of months, his behavior is better. The rage has stopped. He was able to make friends. He's been on the honor roll or dean's list for 8 years. I just saw a letter he got from his college. He's on the president's list. He wants to be a firefighter. And this is Jarrett and I recently. And I asked him why he wanted to be a firefighter. And this is what he told me. On someone's worst day, I want to make it better. And Jarrett's story is actually the beginning of chapter 1. So there's a really cool introduction to the book, but chapter 1 is where I get into the meat of it. And then I wondered in chapter 1, how would Jarrett have been treated throughout the ages? And so, for example, in ancient civilization, they may have drilled a hole in his skull to let out the evil spirits. Ouch. In the times of Hippocrates, 400 BC, they would have changed his diet. Hippocrates would have changed his diet, had him exercise, put him in a job that fit his restless nature. So all those things I like, and then he would have bled him to release the excessive fluids that he had.
So it was all good except for that.
All good except for that. In the Middle Ages, he may have been put in an asylum and chained and beaten, trying to modify his behavior. In the 18th and 19th centuries, they may have sterilized him and his family, be placed under suspicion in the eugenics program that was first actually pioneered here in America. It's the precursor to Nazi atrocities. In the 20th century, Freud may have had Jarrett on his couch to talk about his internal conflicts, especially his relationship with his mother. Why are mothers
why are we always
blamed for everything?
What is that?
But it wouldn't have worked, and then he would have said, well, he has a personality disorder. In the 1950s, he may have been given a prefrontal lobotomy. I mean, he was like the candidate for it with his aggressive, impulsive, restless nature. And it may have calmed down his aggression, but also ruined his personality. In the 1960s, he may have been given electroshock therapy. Your grandmother had that. Sort of not the kind of buzz he would like. And currently, he was, seeing many doctors with multiple different medications without anyone ever looking at his brain.
Yeah, I'm feeling like it's a good thing they didn't put a hole in his brain in current times, but it's not like they did a really great job treating him. Yeah.
So the imaging work we've done at Amen Clinics just completely changed the discussion around mental health for me. And so you said you almost canceled your first date with me when you found out I was a psychiatrist.
I just thought psychiatrists
Tana
were weird.
is a neurosurgical ICU nurse.
And I also worked for Medtronic in their neuro division, so brain anatomy was something I was highly focused on. But psychiatry, not so much.
Well, but you're a highly trained person that worked with really complex patients. And actually, after our first lunch, 14 years ago, which has been the best 14 years of my
Me
life.
too.
I'm not kidding. That you went, oh, you do things
Oh
differently.
no, I was immediately interested. As soon as I realized what you do, you told me what you do, I was so confused at first. I'm like, wait, what? I'm confused. Why don't all psychiatrists do that? And
Well, that's our goal. The end of mental illness is to get our colleagues to start looking at what they do before they do it. So imaging changed everything. And what I learned a long time ago is nobody really wants to see a psychiatrist, so you're not alone. 1979, when I told my dad I wanted to be a psychiatrist, he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor, why I wanted to be a nut doctor and hang out with nuts all day long. Now, that is not a cool thing to say to your son, right? He did not get Father of the Year. You know, he was working when Father Knows Best was on TV, trying to model healthy parenting for fathers.
so funny.
But I sort of get it after 40 years of doing this, that it's sort of our fault because we don't act. I mean, what doctor doesn't look at the organ they treat? Do you know any other medical specialists that never look at the organ they treat? No one wants to be labeled as defective or abnormal, but everybody wants a better brain. So what if mental health was really brain health? So if I had to summarize the end of mental illness, which is, it's a big book, and it's got 1,084 scientific references in it. But if I had to sum it up, mental health is brain health. Get your brain right, your mind will follow. And then I tell you exactly how to do just that. When you reimagine mental health as brain health, people see their problems as medical and not moral. It decreases shame and guilt almost immediately. It increases compliance because people want better brains. They have more trust in the diagnosis. And it increases forgiveness and compassion in families. And that's just so important. Because if you have a mental health issue, you're not, your kids are suffering. Your parents are suffering. Your siblings are suffering. Brain health issues affect everyone in the family. So that's step one. Let's get rid of the term mental illness. Call these things what they really are: brain health issues that steal your mind. Well, if that's true, and it is, step two is you have to fall in love with your brain. And nobody loves their brain because you can't see it. You can see the wrinkles in your skin or the fat around your belly, and you can do something when you're unhappy, but because most people never look, most people don't know. And early on when I started scanning people, I scanned my children, my ex-wife, I scanned an aunt who has a panic disorder, I scanned a lot of my friends who I knew needed scans. And then I scanned my mom when she was 60. And she just had a stunningly beautiful brain. Now, that actually doesn't surprise you, does it?
No, because your mother's amazing. She's still amazing.
She's 88.
Yeah.
And she has 53 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She knows everybody's name. I don't know everybody's name. She knows everybody's birthday.
She's so
She's
organized.
Everybody's best friend.
And she's like so incredibly organized. It's just so crazy.
And so she has this really great brain. And then I got up the nerve to scan myself, and it sort of looked terrible. And I'm like, why does my brain look so bad? But I played football in high school because I didn't know better. I had meningitis twice as a young soldier. I was an infantry medic. And I had bad habits. I wasn't sleeping. I ate fast food like it was my best friend. Yes, residents, medical students, they don't model brain health for you. And so when I got scanned in 1991, I developed brain envy. I wanted my mother's brain. Freud was wrong. He was about 2.5 feet too low. Penis envy is not the cause of anybody's problem. I've been doing this for 40 years and have not seen one case of it. The kind of envy you need is you need brain envy. So Freud was wrong. It's brain envy. And 25 years later, my brain was fuller, fatter, healthier. And that's the message. You're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. We can prove it. And with a better brain, always comes a better life. So one of our friends, Doug, came to see us. His brain looked terrible. He was raised in Normal, Illinois. I got to visit Normal, Illinois. It was really fun, actually. I got to meet.
It's the only normal there is.
I got to go to the Normal grocery store. I was interviewed on the Normal radio station. I finally got to meet normal women. Being from California, that was not common. And they had the same problems we did everywhere else. And he grew up on a farm around a lot of pesticides. He was also a mixed martial artist. And he was struggling with brain fog and fatigue and poor focus. And he said when he saw his scan, for the first time, it was like seeing one of his children. And he knew once he saw it, he would never again do anything to hurt his brain. Like, when you saw Chloe, you knew you had to stay home and you had to protect her. Right?
Yep.
And now that she's 16 and she's starting to separate.
Yeah, I'm just traumatized.
You still want her home and you still want to protect her.
She's breaking my heart.
Well, this is Doug's scan 3 months later. Did hyperbaric oxygen, which we're a big fan of. Did supplements that we're a fan of. And we're so proud of him. A couple of months ago, I went and spoke. You came with me to Crossings, to an addiction recovery program. And before the program, they had a sobriety chip ceremony. And, less than 30 days sober, here's your chip. Although I'm not sure why they get a chip if they're less than 30 days
Because
sober.
it's the hardest to get.
Oh, that they
The
show
first
up.
30 days, the first 30 days is the hardest to get. So if they're a day sober, it's just hard to get those first few days.
And then 60 days, and then 90 days, and then a year. And I was just thinking to myself,
I know
'cause
way
we've
more
seen
about this than I want to.
thousands of addicts. And when I went up, I said, so how many of you that just got your less than 30 days sober chip have brain fog? And they all raised their hand.
Oh, you could see it.
And I
they look like
said,
deer in the headlights.
well, these are the scans. The addiction scans are some of the worst scans we see. But if you do the right thing, 4 months later can be better.
So imagine trying to become sober with a brain like that, trying to get sobriety when your brain is functioning the way a brain like that functions. So that's why it's just so hard.
It's really hard. And doing the right thing.
So it's like a vicious circle,
And doing the right thing, it can be better. And a year later, for this person, his brain was so much better. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. And so here's Tamara and the girls the night she got her 1 year chip, which we are so excited.
And it's so interesting. It's the longest she's been sober since she was 13 years old. So imagine that many years of doing that to your brain. It takes a while, for it to come back.
So, big ideas from today. We need to get rid of the term mental illness, call these what they really are, brain health issues that steal your mind. And then the second big idea is if you want a better mind, you have to fall in love with your brain. And one of your tasks, so part of the challenge, and you're basically going to police yourself, if you will, is you do each of these things over the next 7 days. And then we're going to have a form for you to fill out each week just to rate your mood, your focus, your anxiety, your memory, pain, and so on, because we want to track your progress over time. And so all of you should have been emailed this very cool form about the challenges for the week. And we have the links for you to go to on our page. And day one, we want you to share a tiny habit. So we actually explain what tiny habits are. We learned it from our mentor, BJ Fogg, and his sister, Linda. It's the smallest thing I can do today that will make the biggest difference. And we worked with them for 6 months, and we created 50 tiny habits for you. And the mother tiny habit, the most important tiny habit, is ask yourself, this takes 3 seconds, this one question: is this good for my brain or bad for it? And if you can answer that question with information and love for yourself, you're going to radically change the health of your brain. And so the task is to share it with someone. So just type it out, explain it, and just share it with one person. Because when you share something, when you do this program with a partner, it'll double your success. When Tana and I were involved in creating the Daniel Plan at Saddleback Church, what we found, those people who did that 6-week challenge, I mean, it actually turned into a year, turned into a life for many people, it doubled their success. So, not very hard. This will take you all of 2 minutes to do. You have any thoughts about that?
No, I think it's great.
Day 2. I mean, you can do all these things as you can do them. We just want you to do everything this week. I want you to download and read the introduction and chapter 1 of my book, The End of Mental Illness. So we are going to give you the introduction and chapter 1, table of contents. All the great people have said wonderful things about it. And there's no requirement to pre-order the book. I'd be so grateful if you did. Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, anywhere you can. And if you go to endofmentalillness.com and tell us you pre-ordered the book, you can actually download a number of free gifts, including one of your cookbooks. They can download 6 of our public television specials and other things as well. Oh, there's a Bright Minds poster that they can do. What we're going to talk about next week and the week after, if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. We created a mnemonic for that called Bright Minds, and this super cool poster to help you know what are your risk factors and what should you do about them. So download and read the introduction and chapter 1 of The End of Mental Illness. Pre-order it if you can. Day 3, we want you to know your brain type, because one of the things the images taught us is not everybody's brain is the same. Some people have balanced brains. Some people are impulsive. Some people
And this
are
is free.
compulsive.
The BHA is
people-
free.
All of these things are free for you. This whole challenge is free. And I'll nudge you to pre-order the book because you need the book. And it will help you have a better brain and a better life. And it helps us spread the message. I mean, that's why we're doing this. So take the brain health assessment, take you all of 5 minutes. You'll know which of the 16 brain types you have, and you'll also know a bit about the health of your brain. Day 4, I created a handout for you. I want you to know your important health numbers.
We always pound on this, but it's just really important.
Well, again, you can't change what you don't measure. We're going to want you to know, well, what's your cholesterol and is it healthy? What's your vitamin D and is it healthy?
And if it's been over 6 months or a year since you've done it, you need to do it again.
Well, and I think for us, we do it about twice a year.
Right.
Just to make sure, and like my blood sugar is sort of chronically a little high.
Yeah.
And berberine, a supplement, berberine helped to normalize it. I was like so excited. So work with your doctor, and often doctors go, oh, you don't need that. Your doctor should not be your mother or your father. Your doctor should be your partner in health, and all the lab tests that we recommend are generally covered by insurance. Day number 5, this is one of the most important exercises I give my patients. It's called the one-page miracle.
Right. So if you were a patient here, we would have you do a lot of these things. So
I have my patients do all of these things, but the one-page miracle is downloaded and on one piece of paper or one form, write down what do you want. What do you want for your relationships, your work, your money, your physical, emotional, and spiritual health? Because none of this is about should. It's about, does it fit? Does your behavior fit the goals you have for your life?
Yeah, this is a really important one. Just the simple act of actually writing it out helps people start to focus on it and manifest it. But if you take it then and go do one step further, I really like people taping it to their mirror. Put it somewhere where you can see it or carry it in your wallet, but make sure you're actually looking at it regularly, because just keeping it in the front of your mind is what's going to really help you make those changes.
Yeah, so for example, on my one-page miracle, I mean, I do it and update it a couple of times a year, but under relationships, you know, Tana is the most important relationship I have. I just write, I want to have a kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship with Tana. I always want that. I don't always feel like that.
I'm so glad that you don't act like you don't always feel like that.
But when I don't feel like it, because I have done the one-page miracle, I ask myself, will this rude comment get me what I want? And generally not.
Right.
Right? That I have a very strong, smart, beautiful wife who's not putting up with any grief. So why am I going to give you grief knowing you're not going to put up with it?
I'm going to give you 10 times back.
Day 6, I want you to focus on eating 5 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And many of these we want you to continue to do. This is one of those things, like you said, put up your one-page miracle, look at it every day. I want you to start adding more fruits and vegetables, colorful fruits and vegetables to your diet. Did you know there's a study from Australia that showed there was a linear correlation between the number of fruits and vegetables people have a day and how happy they are, and it went up to 8.
Most people have trouble with this one, and my tip for this is the one thing, the only way I can make this actually meet that goal is if I start in the morning and people are like, well, how do you eat fruits and vegetables for breakfast? You know, it's really hard. A smoothie. If you just commit to making a smoothie your go-to breakfast for the next 6 weeks, it's like, don't even think about what you're going to eat for breakfast. That is what you're going to eat for breakfast. And you just throw a cup of spinach and, you know, a cup of blueberries in there, a half cup of blueberries in there, and a little more. I'd throw spinach and kale and about a half cup of fruit in there. You just increased your fruit and vegetable intake dramatically for the day. So just commit to that for the next 6 weeks, and you can switch it off, right? You can throw chard in there, and you can throw, you know, whatever types of fruits and vegetables, as long as they're low glycemic, and don't go heavy on the fruit, go heavier on the vegetables.
So what does low glycemic mean for people?
Low sugar. So you don't want things that spike your blood sugar really quickly. You want, and one thing that I also do with my smoothies that will really help you, throw in 1 scoop of like acacia fiber or inulin fiber. It acts as a prebiotic for the bugs in your gut.
A prebiotic meaning it feeds the
Right.
bugs in your
So
gut.
you don't just need probiotics, you need prebiotics. So if you just add a little bit of fiber and some fruits and vegetables to your smoothie and just commit to that being your breakfast. I've got like recipes for, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 different smoothies.
And they're amazing.
Yeah, so just commit to that for the next 6 weeks. You will be shocked at how much you'll not only increase your fruits and vegetable intake, how you will feel.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
Day number 7. I created a meditation for you. We're huge fans of meditation. So many people grew up with trauma when they were young, and it reset their emotional brain to a heightened level. So if you just think of the murder that you talked about when you were 4, or your mom having to work 3 jobs, you were a latchkey kid, your grandmother that had mental health issues, it reset your emotional brain. I've actually published 3 studies on meditation showing how it increases your thoughtful brain but calms down your emotional brain. And my favorite type of meditation is called loving kindness meditation. And the reason I like it, it just sort of fits my personality, but it has research showing that it decreases the effect of trauma, that it lowers anxiety, lowers your blood pressure, decreases headaches. And it's only 4.5 minutes long. I do it for you, so you can download the instructions for it, and then just listen to it. And if you like it, listen to it all the time. We actually have an app that you can sign up for, Brain Fit Life. It's one of the sponsors of this challenge. And on Brain Fit Life, we have meditations, we have hypnosis audios. I'm a huge fan of hypnosis. We have brain enhancing music. So, fun fact, it just makes my wife shake her head, but 3 of our albums have been on the top 10 New Age chart on Billboard.
Yeah, I shake my head because I know musicians who have been working their entire life and not achieved that, and he's not a musician, and he's achieved that.
No, I work with musicians, and we put together these great albums, Brain Warrior's Way.
Right. My favorite is Bright Minds.
Bright Minds, which spent 45 weeks on Billboard's New Age chart. Feel Better Fast, which spent 26 weeks. And in 2018 and 2019, I'm one of the top 10 New Age artists for Billboard, which is hysterical. But on Brain Fit Life, we have all 3 albums for you. You can listen to the music over and over again. Music to sleep, music to focus, music to relax, even pieces for creativity. There's so many ways to enhance brain function. Unfortunately, most people end up going to their family doctor and they leave with prescriptions for antidepressants, anti-anxiety, sleep medication without ever doing simple things to begin to reshape the health of your brain.
Meditation for me is almost like taking medicine. It's insane how well it works.
Do we have any questions? I've been looking at the feed, and there's so many great.
Yeah, thank you for your comments.
Yeah,
I love to
adore
go
you
through
guys.
these later.
I love that. Can we get this in our email to review? Some of us can't retain the abundance. So we're going to keep the video up, and the video will also
You'll be able
have
to watch
links
it
to
again. Yeah.
And those of you who like this, who can handle our relationship, we've done 550 podcasts called The Brain Warrior's Way. It has like 6.5 million downloads. And because we see a lot of people at Amen clinics who have ADD, we decided we'd do them in 10 to 15 minute segments. But I think you'll find this information really valuable. So 2,000 people showed up. Bless you.
Yes, thank you. That's amazing.
Invite your friends. Come back next week. We're going to start talking about the Bright Minds risk factors. We're going to talk about blood flow, retirement and aging, inflammation, genetics, head trauma, and toxins. How do you know if you have it? And then what to do about it.
So this is a question for you. If people do have questions that they would like for us to answer during the class, is there a way for them to send the questions in advance so that they don't get sort of lost in the feed, so that they stand out, or is that they just need to put them in the feed? Just the chat. Okay, so we'll try and keep an eye on the chat then. So we need you to just put the questions into the feed, and we'll try and answer them that way.
Great. So let me just see if we have another couple of minutes. If there are any questions that come through.
We have about a 30 to 40 second delay.
No apples before bed. Oh,
Yeah.
This is a great question. What about juice?
No juice. So
What?
no juice.
My dad
Zero.
was a
So-
grower for Sunkist.
So there's a really interesting thing. You can actually end up with people who drink a lot of juice can get non-alcoholic fatty liver. So it's interesting. It actually it can actually affect
I'm
your
sorry.
liver. Yeah.
If I drink orange juice.
Yeah. Apple juice, orange juice, pineapple juice. Now, small amounts of grapefruit
the
juice, like
shakes-
tiny amounts of grapefruit juice.
So the shakes are not made with juice.
No, they're made with a little bit of real fruit, because you don't
And
want to
water.
remove the juice from the fiber source. If you're going to eat fruit, you need the fiber and the enzymes, everything that goes along with the fruit, because it fills you up and keeps you from drinking 10 ounces of juice. Because when you drink 10 ounces of juice, you're getting something like 45 grams of sugar, 38 grams of sugar. That's like a soda. It's crazy. So you don't want to do that. That takes like 7 or 8 oranges to make 10 ounces of juice, something crazy.
Wow.
So you don't want to do that. You want to eat the piece of fruit, not 10 pieces of fruit, a piece of fruit. Yeah, so no juice. Not good for kids.
There was a world champion MMA fight this past weekend. Good for your brain or bad for
Everyone in my dojo is talking about it.
I'd never seen a shoulder
Yeah,
strike.
no, that was the first thing that came up when in my lesson today. I just had karate today. The first thing that came up, Mr. White's like telling me, so this is what you need to do. He's talking to me about self-defense, not about MMA. So he was telling me about that fight.
So last week I actually got to see a world champion MMA fighter, and good for your brain or not good for your
Very
brain?
not good for your brain.
Not good for your
But I have to
brain.
tell you, I do love karate, like with a
Protect
passion.
your brain. Thank you so much for being with us. We will see you again next week. Send your questions, your concerns, fill out the forms.
Really
We'll
good
look forward
turnout. Thank
to
you.
seeing you next week.
Yeah.
Take care.